Phnom Penh is a capital city with a rare characteristic. Its logic of development hasn't changed for hundreds of years. Geography, rivers, and transport routes, all of this has shaped a city that is reaching a new peak of development. Today, we will understand why Phnom Penh has always been a key hub of the region, why 2024 to 2025 is the point where investors are jumping in without hesitation, and what will happen to Cambodia in the next 10 years. Watch until the end. The final section will provide an understanding of why major investors are entering Cambodia without hesitation. I'm Dennis Rajnak from the company MERU Estate. Let's begin.
Cambodia was actually called the Pearl of Asia. And we are now entering, starting from 2025, Cambodia's golden decade.
Now, the first question is absolutely fundamental.
It was the French who chose Phnom Penh as the administrative center in 1860. Phnom Penh is an ancient transport hub, a crossroads of cultures and traditions. Phnom Penh is located at the confluence of 4 rivers. These are the Tonle Sap, the Tonle Basak, the Upper Mekong, and the Lower Mekong. It is a natural logistics hub that connects China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and India. Goods flow through the Mekong. Gold, rice, fish, ceramics. There was everything. It's a center, it's a confluence of rivers, it's logistics, it's a convenient location. And that's exactly when they started building the palace. In 1863, it was planned, and in 1866, they requested that all the kings return specifically to this place. So the French did help, gave advice, provided direction, and we started to develop our city. And those 90 years that we were a French colony, they of course gave birth to that very first, one could say, civilization of a different level of trade. Establishing banks and logistics. The city itself was expanding from the very beginning. It was, of course, the center. It's like in Wat Nam, it's the confluence of the rivers. That's where they started to slowly build banks for themselves. Indochina, one of the most important ones. The post office, of course, their own schools, their own hospitals, villas. It's actually very interesting because the capital Phnom Penh itself is not the historical part. That is, unlike Siem Reap, there are no historical buildings here from the 12th or 9th centuries. It was rebuilt, newly constructed, and shaped. And after the cultural capital, even during the French colonial period, they slowly began to expand. They were already thinking about a financial zone, actually. That's a different district. Phnom Penh is truly a young city. Excuse me, of course, for such a comparison, but our first escalator in a supermarket was in 2008. I mean, people would come and they'd be amazed. Wow. And what we see now, 2008, the first escalator with a huge number of our rivers. We have bridges that are still being built now. The city is developing so much. We have cranes everywhere. Everything is being built. Everything is being developed. And the government, of course, supports this because the city, our capital, Phnom Penh, really has huge prospects. A young city, a very young city. I also want to point out that infrastructure and roads are built here first, and only then houses and buildings. It's also very nice that the government is thinking about logistics. Cambodia can be called a country of neutrality and balance because we are constantly trying to negotiate with everyone. We don't want conflict, and the government is also focused on cooperating with everyone. Here, I would say it's even just about reaching agreements because we really are a new country. If we look back a bit into history, in the 1960s, Cambodia was actually called the Pearl of Asia. Cambodia is truly located in a wonderful place. We have rivers and we have access to the Gulf of Thailand. I really want you to see for yourself, to get rid of those old stereotypes about Cambodia being a third world country, a $1 country. I want you to come and see for yourself, to look at our rich Khmer culture and history, and it's only growth from here. I will repeat every time that Cambodia, just give us another 10 years and you won't recognize it. Write in the comments. We will be happy to answer all your questions. If anyone still has any doubts about whether to come to Cambodia or not, just stop by for at least 2.5 days. I always say, you'll come for these 2 days and you'll realize that Cambodia is a contagious country. You will keep coming back here, repeating your visit, seeing a little bit more, and it leaves no one indifferent.
What you just heard is the P. The location of Phnom Penh was never coincidence. Cambodia is a point of balance that has always existed and is once again reclaiming its status as a regional balancer. And this enhances its investment appeal.
We have reached a moment where the country's geopolitical conditions have created a new cycle of development. That is why a new phase is beginning now. This is a very active start, where we are saying that Cambodia is not just at the starting line, it is already in flight. Yes, that is where it is. In fact, Cambodia has become a beneficiary, yes, of the entire transformational global crisis situation today. In 2020, favorable conditions were created.
Despite the fact that it was a global pandemic, well, a mega free trade agreement was created, plus this RCEP. If you translate it into Russian, it's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is practically, 30% of the global GDP. If we translate all this into numbers, right? Since I love numbers. So accordingly, this is 30% of the global GDP, 30% of the planet's population, and 30% of global trade. That is a very significant figure. And RCEP includes 10 ASEAN countries and 5 of the world's largest economies. That is China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and accordingly, South Korea. If Japan joins this as well, it'll be practically 50% of the global GDP. Therefore, for Cambodia, very often when we first arrived here, we heard that it was an appendage of China, that there was only one investor. And accordingly, these were certain risks, yes, when you have only one investor. Since 2022, when RCEP came into force, and why do we say that brand new conditions were created? And accordingly, Cambodia immediately receives a status that is based on four development factors. So Cambodia has been selected as a logistics hub. Yes, that's the first factor. Today, the transformation of geopolitical and economic tasks, yes, it's not a fight for resources, but for logistics. Accordingly, Cambodia is situated in the most advantageous geographical location. Accordingly, 15 countries are choosing it as a logistics hub. A new factor immediately follows from being a logistics hub, and that is investment in it. In other words, Cambodia needs to be developed. So 15 countries, even if not all 15, the most developed countries are pouring their investment resources into Cambodia, right? So as countries and Cambodia, accordingly from this moment on, since it took the leading first place among the top 10 countries in the world in 2024, yes, in the FDI index, and accordingly by holding this first place. The FDI index stands for foreign direct investment. It immediately signals to the entire savvy investment community, yes, that welcome, we are here. See, because Singapore is also here, right? This is the third factor that demonstrates to investors all over the world that we are moving in the right direction. Here, there will be the most reliable, guaranteed, and protected legislative system, which was created in 2021, the Law on Investment, which was created practically for RCEP investors. So this is the third factor. It's digital, 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 meaning Invest Hub, Logistic Hub, Invest Hub, and Digital Hub. The $1 billion agreement that was signed in 2024 with Singapore. The program, which will run until the 25th year, until the year 2050, practically creates conditions for accelerated development. Since Singapore developed over 40 years, but has already created all these technologies, then accordingly, by transferring all its latest technologies to Cambodia, it will develop in, I would like it to be, of course, 20 years. There you go. So it will be accelerated. Well, actually, let's look at Dubai. 23 years, and Dubai has already grown into a modern, not just a metropolis, right, but a business and economic center. It was truly an economic phenomenon, just like Singapore, yes, but in an accelerated version. Accordingly, Cambodia can be accelerated by such major developed countries much faster. Accordingly, since Cambodia is located, and we must take this into account, on the territory of the Great Khmer civilization, yes, which began in the 12th century. On its territory is located the UNESCO Heritage Temple Complex, the eighth wonder of the world, which today is equated as an engineering structure to the Egyptian pyramids. So accordingly, a new global tourist influx is beginning now, and Cambodia will develop as a tourist hub. Let's also focus on the fact that we have three main locations that are currently developing very actively. This is the capital, Phnom Penh. Well, the capital is always in the spotlight, and development, the focus of development, is always on the capital. Therefore, Phnom Penh, the capital Phnom Penh, is called the second Singapore. Development is proceeding entirely according to Singapore's standards and segments. In Phnom Penh, our largest airport has already launched and was handed over on September 9th. Currently, only 2 terminals are operational. It'll be completed by 2030. It will be, and it will enter the list as the 9th largest in the world in terms of cargo traffic. So passenger airports are one thing, but when we talk about Cambodia as a logistics hub, it's precisely about this airport, and it will even be larger than Singapore's airport. It will significantly relieve the Singapore airport. And our second logistics center, so to speak, is the city of Sihanoukville, which is located in, well, you could say the resort area on the coast of the Gulf of Thailand. And there are 2 main points here. I always say that these aren't just little beach houses. This is the second Shenzhen, a major commercial hub that will also enter the list as the 4th largest seaport in the world, similar to the port in Shenzhen. Therefore, Cambodia's territory is quite small, so you need to act quickly. And third, well, we talk about it as a tourist center. Yes, that's Siem Reap, but we won't focus on that for now. And the most important thing here is that the real estate market we are involved in, or want to give our investors the opportunity to hear, see, and feel, as they say, through the numbers. Right now is the most favorable moment. The real estate market is an indicator of economic development. And at this moment, when the entry is the safest but also the most profitable, that's the second stage. Why? Because the first one started back in 2016, but it was riskier. Fairly large investors were getting in, for whom, well, it was practically, okay to lose. Why? Because there was no legislation, there was no signed master plan, and so when everything happened, starting from 2022, there was practically such powerful preparation going on, and in 2023 and 2024, when all the master plans were signed, when all the stages and steps were laid out up to the year 2050, and all the multi-billion-dollar contracts were signed, then, accordingly, we can say today that this is the most risk-free, reliable, and most profitable entry point for an investor. And if we look at the real estate market, it's gaining such significance for investors today. The first and most important thing is political stability. And Cambodia today is at the most politically stable point. Second is economic growth. Yes, economic development. And I have already given you the factors based on which, well, the bet is on Cambodia today. It hit its jackpot over a certain period of time, and accordingly, it's location, location, location. And today we are providing investors with information about the most profitable locations. This is the center of the capital. This is the location of the resort zone, which is very small. Yes, and it has a very high growth rate for the price per square meter in the future and for demand growth. These are the main indicators. We have everything in numbers. I'll say it again. We don't sell renders, we sell red prices. There you go. And we are now entering, just from 2025, Cambodia's golden decade, that is 25 to 35. We are asked very often, I want to note, who is going to buy? I can answer this question right away because we are asked it very often. Cambodia will develop thanks to expats. Today, according to statistics, there are 2.7 million people in the capital alone, and by 2035, it'll be 7 million people. That is, and practically 70% of them will be highly qualified specialists. And the real estate market right now isn't keeping up with development, so there is an opportunity to enter into deals. Well, that is, into investments right now, starting from $1,000 per square meter and up.
This is a point that is important to catch. History, geography, reforms, foreign investment, everything has coincided in one window at a time. Big capital doesn't wait. Big capital enters at the beginning of the cycle. Radha, what goals is the government setting for the next 10 years regarding GDP, exports, urbanization, and tourism?
I can say that the goal, which is for the country to reach upper middle income status by the year 2030, that is in terms of GDP and exports. Here in 2024, exports have reached over $26 billion, and we are no longer dependent solely on textiles, but are already moving toward market diversification. Exports are mainly to the USA. There it's about $10 billion. To Vietnam, almost $4 billion. And to China, it's almost $2 billion. Well, look at these indicators. Urbanization is growing. That is, the current level here is 26.5% of the urban population, growing at 3% per year. And by the year 30, the level of urbanization might reach up to 31%. That's almost 6 million urban residents. By the year 50, that's almost 42%, and so on. This creates a guaranteed structural demand for housing. We can also talk about human capital. The government has launched a project here, a program to train young people in technical skills. Yes, creating qualifications, the middle class of our future clients. If you're looking at local buyers.
And what about tourism?
If we take a closer look at the global tourism sector, it is truly remarkable to see that it is already almost exceeding the visitor figures that were last seen back before the COVID-19 pandemic began. It is a significant milestone for the industry. That is, about 6.6 million tourists. And a large number of expats choose to live here, where they are primarily employed by various international organizations.
What infrastructure projects are currently being built or have been launched in Phnom Penh?
Yes, we are creating a logistics framework for future capitalization. A new airport? Yes, it is. One of the largest in Asia, and the Funan Techo Canal. This will reduce logistics costs by 30%. That is, by connecting the river to the sea and the ring roads and the bridges that are expanding the geography of Phnom Penh to the east. It's called Eriksat.
Which countries are currently the largest investors in Cambodia?
You could say that China remains the main investor. It invested, by the way, nearly 50% of the entire total investment volume in Cambodia just last year alone. Now, when we look at where that money's going, it is mainly heavily investing in the country's critical infrastructure projects. The second major area of focus, which is also quite significant, is Japan and South Korea. Mainly in manufacturing, in malls, supermarkets, and so on. Third, you could say this year it's Singapore in manufacturing and the rest, yes. By the way, lately I've seen some small investments there. Well, like $1.5 million, $1.5 billion, things like that. If we're talking about the Chinese themselves, then it's those Silk Islands, which are also oriented towards here.
As for the USA and the European Union,
the USA and the European Union are basically our buyers, our trade partners. That is, the relations between the countries are very good because they give us quotas, especially preferential ones, as from partner countries, since they are investing here and mainly in the manufacturing sectors. And since we have very cheap labor compared to Japan and Taiwan and so on, that's why our partners are interested here and buy such goods from Cambodia.
Which districts will become the new financial and cultural centers?
If you compare, yes, well, everyone knows Manhattan, New York, so we have something similar in Down Pen, BKK1. This is the financial and diplomatic heart of the capital. So the cost of land here reaches up to, well, from 8 to 13,000 US dollars. This is a zone for headquarters and ultra premium housing. Tul Kork is an elite district like Beverly Hills. This is, if you compare it, yes, an elite residential area with international schools and an international clinic. Chamkaman and Olympic are high-density zones where many expats and middle-class people live. So our latest new growth zones here are Sen Sak and Mien Che. So Sen Sak is the new one. Large shopping malls are being built here. I mean, the Japanese are mainly investing there. They're also holding exhibitions there and building modern residential complexes. Well, Bori is for the local Bori.
What laws provide foreigners with protection and transparency?
If we take a closer look at the current legal framework, it is essential that we understand the law on investment, which was officially released back in 2021. This legislation is quite significant, offering tax holidays of up to 9 years for priority projects and specific economic zones. Additionally, we must also consider the relevant laws on commercial enterprises that govern these business activities. They introduced a mandatory corporate secretary position here and audit requirements, protecting investors from partner fraud. Basically, these are the laws that will give investors and foreigners protection.
What reforms are currently underway?
The most important section for you is in 2025. They are focused on improving the business climate here, by the way. The first is the elimination of bureaucracy. In 2025, the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training cut about 20 administrative services. The second is the administration of reforms and governance. The action plan for 2024 to 2025 on public administration reform. And here, of course, we are not working alone. That is, the World Bank is funding professional development programs here, and the ADB, that's the Asian Development Bank, has approved a reform program to, how should I put it, the quality of services. This is a guarantee that the administrative system is becoming more transparent and efficient. We are also looking at fiscal and digital reforms. Tax policy is being revised with the goal of expanding fiscal space for state investments and infrastructure. That is, fintech and blockchain are also being implemented. Yes, the National Bank is promoting digital solutions not only in banks, but also in public services, minimizing the human factor and corruption risks. The people currently running our government are essentially technocrats. 90% of them hold advanced PhDs and master's degrees, and they have all studied extensively abroad. Because of this background, almost all of their major policy decisions are made strictly based on data and technical analysis rather than political intuition.
What is the attitude toward cryptocurrency and what are the plans regarding it?
The NBC, that's the National Bank, is involved and has taken a progressive stance. So we're not yet legalizing cryptocurrencies as a means of payment, but we have successfully launched the Bakong project, which is a state blockchain system, meaning it makes transactions instant and secure. And cheap. There you go. That is related to cryptocurrency.
What guarantees are there for foreign owners?
We need to understand this. Yes, we allow strata title here. This is full 100% private ownership. This is freehold on an apartment or office from the first floor up. A foreigner can only buy land through a company with Khmer nationality. 51% of the shares must be held by citizens, but with full legal control by the foreigner through a cooperative agreement. The trust law, that is, trust law, ownership through licensed, trust funds.
What will happen with REIT escape? Prices, demand, rental rates?
Trend. Well, here, 2024, 24 was a year of correction. In the first 7 months of 25, investments in construction grew by 60%. That's almost $5 billion. The market has hit bottom. Above, meaning the demand, it's fundamental. urban population growth of 3%. The education program plus the training program for 1.5 million young people is creating a massive demand for quality housing over the next 5 years. Rentals, the growth in the number of expats and international companies are supporting high rates in central districts of 5 to 7% annually.
Why should an investor get in right now?
Well, I would say there are 6 points that might be interesting for you. That settles everything, right? So first is the low base effect. Asset prices haven't reacted yet. Well, this is a new, so to speak, recovery of investments. From 2025, you are acquiring assets before the start of a new cycle. Second is political stability. That is, the transition of power to a new generation of leaders went flawlessly. I mean, they handed over power 2 years ago. They are young, educated, and most importantly, they are very business-oriented. Third is the demographic dividend. We expect the urban population to grow to almost 5, that is, to 6 million, by the year 2030. Yes, you need to get in now before prices react to this mass influx. Economic stability, resilience. I mean, our exports here are $27 billion. Diversification of the US, Vietnam, and China markets creates a safety cushion for the economy. Government support, reducing administrative barriers, and simplifying procedures for investors. These aren't just slogans, but measures already being implemented by 2025. And finally, strategic partners. Of course, having our trading house provides you with direct support and eliminates entry barriers. Thank you very much.
If you combine what Jana said and what Ratho confirmed, we get an extremely rare picture that is encountered in investment markets. The beginning of a new cycle. Cambodia is a country that is entering a phase of accelerated growth, and today we heard 3 main confirmations. History and geography have always worked in Phnom Penh's favor. The economy is entering an upward cycle. Government development plans confirm long-term growth, and when such factors coincide, the market takes a leap forward. If you are considering investments in Cambodia, the MERU Estate team will help you select reliable projects and explain the strategy for growing your capital during this specific development cycle. The link is below the video. Click the link to get a personal consultation and let us know in the comments which question about Cambodia concerns you the most. We'll cover the best questions in our next video. This has been Dennis Rashniak and the MERU Estate Company. Real estate that works. And see you next time.